My name is Louise. Standing in the new office above the independent bookstore, I look out at the Portland skyline, a sense of calm washing over me. The Wi-Fi here is finicky, the coffee machine wheezes, and the desks are mismatched, but this place is filled with possibilities. A far cry from the chaos I left behind at my family's firm. It all started with that rooftop party. The string lights twinkled above the white-clothed tables. Champagne flutes caught the last rays of the setting sun. Everyone was celebrating the launch of Zenith, the AI platform I'd slaved over for 18 months. It had transformed my parents' struggling marketing firm, Harris & Company, from the brink of collapse into a $150 million empire. My father, Henry, raised his glass and announced my sister, Vivian, as the new Chief Innovation Officer. The architect of our future, he called her. The crowd erupted in applause. Vivian, in her silver sequin dress, stepped forward, smiling as if she'd truly earned every bit of praise. I stood nearby in my simple navy jumpsuit, watching Zenith's dashboard cycle through real-time metrics. I'd built it all alone in a converted guest bedroom, through countless sleepless nights and aching wrists. Later, my parents found me at the bar. My father handed me a gift bag, grinning. A little something for the woman behind the curtain. Inside was a ceramic mug that read Best Assistant. I wrapped my fingers around the handle and forced a smile. Thanks, I said. That night, I carried the mug back to my apartment. As the city slept off its champagne and self-congratulation, I opened the admin dashboard of my company, Eclipse Systems. I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't the assistant, I was the architect, and they were about to learn the difference. It wasn't always like this. I grew up in a family where my parents, Henry and Margaret, had different expectations for me and Vivian. Vivian, 2 years younger, was the life of the party. She was always loud, always ready for the camera. At every birthday party, recital, and family photo, she stood center stage. While other kids in 5th grade were drawing pictures or playing with toys, I was rewriting calculator code to predict test scores. My mother thought it was cute, but my father was more interested in his business deals. When I was 10, I won a national coding competition. I'd created a program that could solve complex math problems in seconds. The judges were impressed, but my father only asked if I'd done my chores. Around the same time, Vivian made a simple collage for a school project. My parents called all our relatives to brag about her creativity. It was a pattern that repeated itself over and over. Vivian could turn any failure into an opportunity, always buoyed by our parents' belief that she was destined for great things. When her fashion startup failed in New York, they blamed the market. When her internship at a PR firm ended early, they blamed the company culture. But when I burned out during my 2nd year at Stanford, taking on too many AI research projects, they said I needed to find a balance. I learned early on that my value was in being useful, not in being loved. By the time I graduated from Stanford with a degree in computer science and artificial intelligence, Harris & Company was in dire straits. The company, once a respected name in the local business community, had clung to old-fashioned methods in a digital age. Campaigns were failing, clients were leaving, and layoffs were inevitable. I came back not out of nostalgia but because I couldn't stand to watch it die when I knew how to save it. I didn't return with hopes of praise, I came with a plan. The offices were downsized, the staff was cut in half, and clients were dwindling month by month. The company my grandparents had built in the 1970s was suffocating under its own refusal to evolve. I offered to help, not for gratitude, but because I saw a problem I could solve. I turned the guest bedroom into a lab. At night, while my parents hosted networking events downstairs, I coded until my wrists ached and my vision blurred. I didn't tell them everything because I knew I couldn't trust them. I registered Zenith under Eclipse Systems, a limited liability company I'd formed in California. The licensing agreement I drafted gave Harris & Company full access to Zenith's capabilities, but only as long as I remained the director of technical operations. The clause was buried deep in the legal documents, and my father signed it without reading. Zenith wasn't just software, it was a revolutionary predictive analytics engine. It could scan consumer behavior, anticipate market trends, and adapt marketing strategies in real time. It learned and evolved, and it worked. Within 6 months, Zenith had cut operational costs by 40%. Within a year, we'd landed 3 Fortune 500 contracts. By the second year, major national retail chains were lining up to work with us. Vivian, who'd returned home after her failed startup, volunteered to handle client demos. "I can sell it better," she said with her confident smile. And she could. She was magnetic in meetings, photogenic for interviews, and effortlessly charming. I stayed behind the scenes, fine-tuning algorithms, optimizing workflows, and fixing bugs that no one knew existed. At first, I didn't mind. The work was what mattered. But as the company's valuation hit $150 million and the press clippings only mentioned Vivian, something inside me began to break. Articles in business journals and tech magazines praised her vision, her leadership, and her ability to blend human intuition with machine learning. My name was nowhere to be found. Investors stopped asking me technical questions. New clients requested Vivian by name. At team meetings, Vivian handed out branded notebooks that read Vision, Voice, Victory. Half of the staff didn't even know that I'd built the entire system architecture. My father framed the articles and hung them in the lobby for every client to see. I kept working on Zenith, planning a major update with a reinforcement learning module that could reshape entire campaign strategies. But no one cared about my plans. They only asked if Vivian was speaking at the next conference. The launch party was the final straw. As my father announced Vivian as the Chief Innovation Officer, I felt a cold certainty wash over me. The rest of the evening was a blur. Guests congratulated Vivian, and some mistook me for a junior developer. When I got back to my apartment, I opened the Eclipse Systems console. I authenticated with a biometric key I'd built years ago. One by one, I reviewed the access permissions. Harris & Company's license to use Zenith was tied to my role as Director of Technical Operations. I initiated the termination protocol. I also opened the client contracts. Each one had a clause I'd negotiated, giving them the right to walk if I was no longer affiliated with the company. I drafted careful messages, stating the facts without bitterness or anger. I sent them individually, one by one. At 1:17 a.m. My phone buzzed. It was Vivian asking if I was okay. She had no idea what was coming. I powered off my phone. A new alert on the screen confirmed the revocation of back-end privileges. Their dashboards would go dark by sunrise. The next morning, when I walked into the office, the damage was already evident. The front desk assistant was on the phone, her voice strained. A junior developer was pacing, muttering that he couldn't access anything. In the hallway, people were asking where the analytics dashboard had gone. I walked into the executive conference room. Vivian was standing by the whiteboard, phone in hand, her eyes wide. My father was at the head of the table, red-faced and flipping through papers. When they saw me, Vivian's shoulders sagged. "Louise, thank God. Something's wrong with Zenith. Can you?" "I know," I said, placing a folder on the table. "It's intentional." My father stood up. "What are you talking about? You can't do that. That's our software." I looked him in the eye. "No, it's not. Eclipse Systems owns Zenith. You signed a licensing agreement that tied its use to my leadership role." Vivian looked stunned. "You're leaving?" I nodded and slid a flash drive across the table. "Here's my formal resignation. Effective immediately." "You don't have to do this," she said quickly. "We can fix this." "I'm not here for apologies," I said. "I'm here to reclaim what I built." My father's face twisted. You blindsided us. No, I said. You just never bothered to look. I turned and walked out. Behind me, chairs scraped and papers fluttered. The walls seemed to tremble as something real finally shifted. In this new office, things are different. 12 clients followed me within the first 24 hours, including Starbucks and REI. My team is small but dedicated. We work in a collaborative and transparent environment, with no drama or spotlight chasing. By noon, we'd sent out our first updated proposals. By 3 p.m. We had 2 signed contracts in hand. I watched the numbers roll in, not with adrenaline, but with a sense of clarity. This was mine, earned through hard work. Vivian called me at 6:42 p.m. But I let it ring. She texted at 7:09 p.m. Please talk to me. I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, an email from my father arrived, saying, "We can fix this." But there was nothing left to fix. A few days later, Vivian asked to meet at a cafe near the waterfront. When I arrived, she was sitting by the window, looking tired and unkempt. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "I didn't realize what was happening with the contracts, the software." I stirred my tea and said nothing. "I thought you'd always be there." "I thought you didn't mind," she added. I looked up at her. "When they gave you the title, when they said you built something you didn't understand, did you ever question it?" Her face crumpled. "No, I didn't think. I just took it." "That's the difference between us," I said. "You never had to think about what you were given. I never stopped thinking about what could be taken." She reached across the table, but I didn't move. "Please, Louise. We're falling apart. Dad's a mess. Investors are pulling out. We can't fix this without you." I stood up slowly. "You wanted the title, Vivian. Keep it. Figure out what it actually means." I walked out of the cafe without looking back. Within 3 weeks, Harris & Company unraveled. The firm issued a statement about organizational restructuring, but the silence from major clients said it all. My father was removed by the board, and Vivian resigned days later. Meanwhile, Eclipse Systems signed 2 more major contracts, one with a healthcare startup and another with a sustainable retail brand. A few weeks later, I was invited to speak at Stanford's Tech Ethics Seminar. I almost declined, but then I decided to go. I brought the Best Assistant mug with me. I sat it on the podium and spoke about innovation, ownership, and what it means to build when no one's watching. The students listened intently. One in the back took a photo of the mug. After the talk, I walked out with a sense of weight having shifted. The mug rode home in my bag beside a new signed contract. The envelope arrived without a return address, but I recognized my father's handwriting. I held it for a moment, then slid it unopened into the back sleeve of my scrapbook. The scrapbook page already held a photo of the Eclipse Systems team at our first product milestone, grinning in hoodies. Next to it was the signed contract that had taken our valuation past $600 million. And beside that, the mug, still chipped at the rim. I closed the book and set it on the shelf. Outside, the Portland skyline shimmered under low clouds. My new apartment overlooks the Willamette River. It's quiet, with clean lines and no noise. I make a cup of coffee and carry it to the window. The city hums below, and a neighbor waves at me. I wave back. For years, I'd waited for someone to tell me I mattered. Now, I know I've built something that no one can take away.